Tired of the same old at business events? Well, this is not the same as last year. The podcast where we blow up the boring and lead the charge into the attendee-first era of business events. I'm Clare Forestier, a business event MC obsessed with transforming audiences from passive observers into dynamic participants at events. Each week we'll challenge the conventions, share actionable tips, and hear from fellow event rebels who are mastering the engagement game. Imagine your attendees begging for more after your next event. That's the magic of prioritising their experience. Ready to ditch the dull and create corporate events your audiences will rave about? Then you've found your tribe. Join the movement. Welcome to Not the Same as Last Year.
Welcome back to Not the Same as Last Year. I'm Clare Forestier, I'm your host, and today we are tackling a really important topic for anyone that is passionate about creating events that put the attendee at the heart of your event, and that is getting your internal team on board with this approach. Now, if you've been following me or listening to my rants here or on social media, the chances are you are now really up for designing events that put the attendee first, and you probably have a vision for an event that really prioritises their engagement. But if it means doing things a little bit differently from last year, and chances are it does, sometimes convincing your colleagues and your bosses and potentially your clients to move in this direction can be tricky. So let's start by acknowledging the challenges. Internal teams often have different priorities. They might be focused on budgets, logistics, or meeting internal goals of the business that don't always align with the attendee experience. Additionally, there can be resistance to change, especially if your company has a history of traditional event formats. And to be fair, I think we're all a little bit institutionalized into expecting our events to follow the default event setting of coffee breaks masquerading as networking, endless PowerPoint presentations over busy schedules, crappy lighting, too much noise, etc., etc. But there is a way we can make a compelling case for prioritizing the attendee. First of all, tell them happy attendees lead to better business outcomes. The satisfied attendees are the ones that are more likely to become loyal customers, brand advocates, and potential partners. Secondly, they will increase your ROI because an engaged attendee is much more perceptive, much more receptive. Secondly, it will increase ROI. An engaged attendee is much more receptive to your message, leading to better lead generation and sales opportunities. And thirdly, it's going to mean a positive brand perception. When you prioritize attendee experience, it actually reflects a company that values its customers and the way they feel. So how do we translate this why then into action? I think we've got to learn to speak their language of the people that we're trying to persuade. You can't just talk about the term attendee experience to your colleagues and your bosses. They don't necessarily work in events. They're not necessarily going to get that. So you've got to connect it to what matters to them, their priorities. So you frame increased attendee engagement as a way to improve lead generation for sales or brand awareness for marketing. And you show them the money. Data is your friend here. Gather all you can from past events like attendee feedback or post-event surveys, not just your own, but also what other people are sharing out there on social media around best practice and event trend reports. And you can use this data to really highlight the benefits of the attendee-centric approach. And I think it's also important to think just in terms of starting with small wins. People like me, MCs, and others who are out here loudly pushing for change, I know we often talk really big about the potential, but the reality is you may have to start quite small. You can't overhaul everything in your event overnight. How about suggesting that you implement some more attendee-centric elements into a pilot event to showcase the effectiveness of them, or ask if you can maybe prove the concept in a smaller internal event? Now, it's frustrated me for ages why the concept of an attendee-centric event is so slow to really start happening at business events. And I suppose it's like when you're looking for a place to live with your partner, some of us can easily see the potential in a space and visualize its transformation. My husband tends to be discouraged by limitations, for example, like a small living room. He can't see, like I can, that we could make it look amazing and have an open layout if we just knock down some walls. And it's a similar idea with events. Now, be warned, wondering why some people are not able to picture what to them is an unfamiliar event experience and why they then reject it despite what we tell them, it has led me down quite a few weird paths or two in researching online. But it's apparently because we tend to understand things only by relating them to a previous experience. Cognitive psychologists suggests this thing that humans rely heavily on is called schema. It is a mental framework that we use to organize information. It's a template, if you like, that helps us understand new experiences by relating them to things we already know. I mean, it's what helps us make sense of the world quickly. It allows us to fill in gaps in our knowledge and to then be able to make predictions. But the problem is, it can also sometimes lead to biases or stereotypes, and it can make it difficult for us to understand things that are completely new or outside our existing knowledge base. So if your team don't immediately get you and your plans, don't despair. It's not that they're being bloody minded and old fashioned, it is their schema bias. And that's when you need things like good old behavioural psychology to help move them. Don't worry, I'm not about to launch into that because it isn't my area of expertise, although it is fascinating. But the one bit of psychology that I think always works is finding the humanity, the common ground, bonding. So collaboration here, I think it's vital. You want to get your wider team involved in the whole brainstorming process around your event, rather than just hectoring them about all the shizzle I talk about in this podcast. Try and get their input on the ideas that you have for making things more fun and engaging. Ask them what matters to them, what they would want to achieve from the event and what they would want to achieve if they were going to the event. And then you can see how your ideas might help them see that specific thing happening. I think another way is to showcase success stories, share examples from other companies and what they've done, those that have successfully implemented attendee-centric events and the positive impact it had on their business. And then you will really get them to see the impact. And you can then follow that up by following the surveys and reading the research, getting the data, showing that to them, and follow the influencers in this field. I would suggest subscribing to Julia Solaris's newsletter about research, the event psychologist Victoria Matey on LinkedIn. She's great. Look up her research on her website, and she shares actually loads of other links to the great resources for event design that puts the attendee first. Also, check out the event wellness consultant David C. Stevens' podcast. It's called Return on Wellness. And in fact, both Victoria and David are joining me on the podcast in the next few months. And I will share all the details of everything I just mentioned in the show notes. And of course, there are many more people to follow. If you've heard episode 5, I think it was, with Liz Lathan, you're hopefully already paying attention to what she says around experience at events. Now, even if you do all of the above, let's be honest, there may still be some concerns. So here are a few common ones and how I think you could address them. So there's going to be budget concerns often if you want to change something and maybe spend money in a different place from where you spent it last time on the event. So always focus on the potential for the increased ROI to demonstrate that attendee centricity at events, going attendee first, can be cost effective. Time constraints. Highlight the efficiency of interactive formats and collaboration within the team to streamline event planning. So show them how it can actually make things more effective when you're planning things to have lots of collaboration and interactive formats. Because if people see that happening with your planning, they'll go, oh, that could really work in an event. Fear of the unknown. I mean, we've been talking about that, but you need to maybe get them to just say, look, maybe we could experiment. So kind of try and get them to acknowledge there's an opportunity there to try something new and experiment, whilst emphasizing how you could then grow that out later, and any positive results, make sure they are really highlighted. Now, we've talked about some ideas of how to help people come along with you on this goal towards an attendee first end. And I think the thing to really remember is it's about building a shared vision. If you can really demonstrate the value proposition of attendee first and this idea of making things really open and open communication, then hopefully you're going to create a really collaborative environment for your event, which leads to a more collaborative environment at your event. So do share your thoughts. I know some of my clients have struggled to get their team or their bosses on board, and so I'm sure you're in the same boat sometimes. How do you bring all the stakeholders on board with this attendee first approach? What strategies have worked for you? I'd love it if we could keep the conversation going on social media. Maybe tag me in, Clare Forestier, or use the not the same as last year hashtag. I'm determined to get that hashtag viral. And of course, join me next time when I will be talking to an event psychologist. Yes, my next guest actually has an ology in how to make events better. So see you next week.
And there you have it. I hope you're inspired to revolutionize the attendee experience at your next event. Ready to dive deeper? Download your free guide, 5 ways to elevate your attendee experience without breaking the bank. The link is in the show notes. Subscribe to Not the Same as Last Year podcast, connect with me, Clare Forestier, on LinkedIn, or visit my YouTube channel for even more tips and insights to make your events a hit with your attendees. Don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback is going to fuel my mission. Stay tuned next week for another episode packed with inspiring ideas and practical strategies to put your attendee first.